Pam Grier, known today as the legendary queen of action movies, lived a life filled with struggle long before she became a Hollywood star. Behind her strong screen presence and bold characters, she fought painful battles that most people never knew about. When she was only 6 years old, something tragic happened that would change her forever. She was attacked by boys who should have protected her. Then at 18, it happened again. Even after that, when she tried to make a career in movies, some producers tried to take advantage of her and offered her roles in exchange for her body. Pam refused them all, standing up for herself every time. But in 1988, she faced her greatest fight yet, and this time, the enemy was not a person. It was something growing inside her, something that would nearly take her life and reveal a dark secret in Hollywood. Pam Grier was born on May 26, 1949, in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Her mother, Gwendolyn, was a nurse, and her father, Clarence, served in the U.S. Air Force. Because of her father's job, the family had to move often, which made Pam feel like she never truly had a permanent home. In 1956, when she was 7 years old, her family moved all the way to Swindon, England. It was a big change for a little girl from the American South. But something about England surprised her. The children there didn't treat her badly because of her skin color. Later in life, she said that British kids were raised to dislike Germans after World War II, not black people. That experience stuck in her mind and showed her that hatred was taught, not natural. In 1958, her family moved back to the United States, settling near Denver, Colorado. Life there was much harsher. When Pam was 6, she went to visit her aunt in Swink, Colorado, and something horrifying happened. Several older boys, including her own cousin, trapped her in a laundry room and raped her. A telephone repairman walked in during the attack, scared the boys off, and then went right back to fixing the phone like nothing had happened. Pam was just a little girl, confused and terrified. She never forgot that moment. It changed her completely. The happy, talkative child she had been turned into a quiet, frightened one. She began to stutter and lost her confidence. She never told anyone what had happened because she felt ashamed, even though she had done nothing wrong. Years later, when she was 18, she experienced another trauma. She was on a date, and the man she trusted raped her. It brought back all the pain she had buried deep inside from childhood. Still, she stayed silent about it for many years. She wouldn't talk about these attacks until she wrote her memoir decades later, where she shared her story in hopes of helping other women heal. During the early 1960s, Pam also had to deal with racism in America. After living in England, where people barely noticed her race, returning to the U.S. was a shock. She suddenly saw how deeply racism was rooted in American life. Buses would pass by without stopping for her family. Restaurants refused to serve them. She once tried to swim in a public pool, only to be told it was for whites only. Even in 1969, she and her father were not allowed to try on clothes in some stores. It was a constant reminder that no matter how kind, talented, or respectful they weren't treated as equals. But Pam came from a strong family. Her mother's side had survived slavery and found freedom through the Underground Railroad, eventually settling in Wyoming. That history of strength and survival was in her blood. It gave her the courage to face the cruelty of the world and rise above it. These experiences later shaped the powerful, fearless women she played on screen, characters who fought back, demanded respect, and never gave up. At 18, in 1967, Pam entered the Miss Colorado Universe pageant. She didn't do it for fame or vanity. She joined because she needed money to pay for college. At that time, she was studying at Metropolitan State College, working hard to build a better future for herself. She wasn't born into wealth or privilege, but she had big dreams and determination. Pam's early life was filled with challenges, racism, violence, pain, and survival, but she never let those experiences define her in a negative way. Instead, she turned them into fuel for her success. She learned to protect herself and to fight for what she deserved. In time, that inner strength would shine through every role she played. When she eventually made her way to Hollywood, she didn't have the same connections as many others. She was an outsider, a black woman trying to make it in an industry that often judged women by their looks and expected them to play submissive or stereotypical roles. Producers wanted her to use her beauty to sell movies, but she refused to be used. Pam wanted to play women who were strong, smart, and independent, women who looked like her and had the same fire she carried inside. Her rise in Hollywood during the 1970s changed the way audiences saw black women in film. She became a symbol of power and resilience, not just for African Americans but for women everywhere. Movies like Coffy, Foxy Brown, and Jackie Brown made her a legend. People called her the Queen of Blaxploitation, but she was much more than that. She was a pioneer who broke barriers and gave a voice to women who had none. But while the world saw her as a fierce action star, Pam was still fighting private battles. She carried scars from her childhood and the constant pressure of being a woman in Hollywood. Then, in 1988, she faced her most terrifying challenge yet. Doctors told her she had cervical cancer and gave her only a few months to live. She was devastated but refused to give up. Pam changed her diet, focused on natural healing, and leaned on her faith. Slowly, against all odds, she began to recover. Her fight against cancer revealed not only her physical strength but also her emotional courage. During her treatment, she also learned disturbing truths about how some in Hollywood used women's health for profit, secrets that would later come to light and shock the industry. But through it all, Pam stayed true to herself. She refused to be broken. Pam Grier's story is one of courage, survival, and self-respect. From a childhood filled with pain to the top of Hollywood fame, she turned every hardship into a source of strength. Her life reminds us that even when the world tries to silence you, you can rise again, stronger than ever. Pam didn't win first place in the Miss Colorado Universe pageant, but she did make it into the top finalists, which was an incredible achievement for a mixed-race girl at that time. More importantly, someone at the pageant saw her potential and gave her a contact in Hollywood. That connection became her first step into show business. Through it, she got her first agent, and soon, doors began to open, even if only slightly. Not long after, she was singing backup for legends like Stevie Wonder and Sly Stone. She even got the chance to watch Jimi Hendrix's record in the studio. Those moments showed her a world she wanted to be part of, a world of creativity, talent, and possibility. That same year, she decided to take a risk. She packed her bags and moved to Los Angeles, hoping to start a real career. But life in LA wasn't glamorous. It was tough, lonely, and expensive. She didn't have family there, didn't have connections, and barely had any money. To survive, she learned to hustle. She lied her way into a job at a casting agency by pretending she knew how to use the switchboard. On her first day, she secretly watched how others handled the phone system until she figured it out. It was the start of her crash course in Hollywood survival. Pam worked multiple jobs to stay afloat. She was a hostess, a receptionist, even a nude model for art students. There were days she could only afford one meal, and nights she barely got any sleep. Between 1967 and 1970, she worked over 40 different jobs, doing whatever it took to keep her dream alive. Even though she was struggling, she refused to give up. Back in Denver, her school years had been painful because of how she looked. Pam was of Black, Hispanic, Filipino, Chinese, and Cheyenne heritage, and that made her stand out. She didn't fit neatly into one group, and other kids didn't know how to treat her. They teased her, called her names, and sometimes even hit her. The constant bullying made her angry and afraid, but instead of letting it break her, she found a way to fight back, literally. She started taking self-defense and martial arts classes. For her, it wasn't about hurting others, it was about finding her strength again. Those skills later became a natural part of her identity on screen. When she fought back in movies, she wasn't acting, she was channeling the strength she had built in real life. In 1968, when she was just 19, Pam made another bold choice. She called the Hollywood agent she had met during the pageant and told him she was ready to work. With only $200 to her name, she moved into a tiny 200-square-foot apartment in Los Angeles that she shared with two other girls. It was cramped, noisy, and barely had room for all their belongings, but to Pam, it was freedom, her first step toward the dream she had been chasing since she was a teenager. Her first break came in 1970 when she got a small, uncredited part in the cult film Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. She was paid only $25 for the job, but she didn't care. She treated the set like her classroom, watching how professional actors performed, how directors gave instructions, and how cameras captured every movement. She was learning fast, building her confidence, and preparing for something bigger. But breaking into Hollywood was not easy for someone like her. The movie industry in the late 1960s and early 1970s was dominated by white men, and women of color were often given only stereotypical roles, background dancers, tribal characters, or seductive villains. Pam hated those roles. They didn't show the strength or intelligence of real women, and she refused to let herself be limited by them. Still, she took small parts here and there, just to keep working and get her name out there. The money was terrible, but she knew every experience mattered. Everything began to change in early 1970 when legendary producer Roger Corman saw her at a party. Corman was known for giving unknown actors their first big break, and when he met Pam, he was instantly impressed by her height, beauty, and natural strength. He offered her a part in his new film The Big Dollhouse, an action movie set in a women's prison. It was the kind of bold, physical role that fit her perfectly. Pam knew this was her chance to prove herself, so she trained harder than ever before. She practiced martial arts, learned how to handle weapons, and even gained 15 pounds of muscle. She was determined to show that she wasn't just another pretty face, she was a real fighter. Just when things finally seemed to be improving, disaster struck. That same year, she was invited to meet with a well-known Hollywood producer who claimed he could make her a star. Excited but cautious, Pam showed up thinking it was a business meeting. Instead, the man made a disgusting offer. He told her bluntly, "Sleep with me, or you don't get the part." Pam was furious. She had worked so hard just to be taken seriously, and now she was being told that her success depended on what she would give, not what she could do. Without hesitation, she refused. She walked out, knowing that saying no could cost her future opportunities. But she didn't care. She had been through far worse and knew that no role was worth losing her self-respect. The encounter left her shaken, but it also fueled her determination. She realized that Hollywood was full of people who tried to exploit young women, especially women of color, and she was not going to be one of them. That strength became a defining part of her identity, both on and off screen. Pam kept pushing forward. Her work in The Big Dollhouse was a breakthrough. Audiences noticed her intensity and authenticity. She wasn't like the other actresses in action films, she didn't need anyone to protect her. She could hold her own. Her combination of toughness, beauty, and vulnerability made her unforgettable. This role opened the door to a series of films that would turn her into a symbol of power and independence in the 1970s. Even though she had faced racism, sexism, poverty, and exploitation, Pam never lost her dignity or drive. Each obstacle made her stronger, preparing her for the career that lay ahead. By refusing to compromise her values, she not only built a name for herself but also helped redefine what a female action star could be. Her story during these early years in Hollywood is a lesson in courage and survival. Pam Grier didn't rise to fame because someone handed her success, she fought for it every step of the way. Through endless rejection, hard labor, and the constant pressure to give in, she proved that her worth came from her talent, not her looks or anyone else's approval. It was this unbreakable spirit that would soon make her one of the most iconic women in film history. When that powerful Hollywood producer tried to assault Pam Grier, she didn't freeze or back down. She fought him off with everything she had. It was terrifying, but it also reminded her of who she was, a survivor. Afterward, she thought seriously about quitting Hollywood. She wanted to go back to Denver, to a simpler and safer life. But she didn't. She stayed. That moment, painful as it was, lit a fire inside her that never went out. From then on, every role she took became a form of resistance, a way to fight back against the people who tried to control her. In 1971, her hard work finally paid off. Pam starred in The Big Doll House, a movie about women in prison, and it became a surprise hit. The film had been made for only $125,000 but went on to earn more than $10 million at the box office, a massive success for a low-budget film. Pam played a fierce inmate who didn't just act tough, she did her own stunts, even in the grueling mud wrestling scene that took 3 days to shoot after a storm destroyed the set. The movie's producer, Roger Corman, later admitted it turned out much more raw and intense than expected, but audiences loved it. The film not only launched Pam's career but also created a new film genre, the women in prison action series. That same year, Pam played a ruthless warden in Women in Cages. It was a shocking movie, filled with violence and scenes that pushed the limits of what audiences had ever seen. Pam's character was cruel, powerful, and unforgettable. But later, Pam admitted she didn't feel proud of those nude scenes. She said she had been manipulated and felt used. Even so, her screen presence was magnetic. No one could look away when she was on camera. In 1972, she returned to the screen in The Big Birdcage, where she played a rebel planning an escape using guerrilla tactics, actual strategies taught by former fighters in the Philippines. The film was intense and dangerous. Many of the stunts were real, and some actors were injured during filming. In one scene, a prisoner was crushed under a bamboo mill. Pam wasn't just pretending to be strong, she was living it. She did her own stunts, took real hits, and earned respect for being one of the toughest women in Hollywood. Then came 1973, a turning point in her career. Pam starred in Scream Blackula Scream, playing a voodoo priestess named Lisa who could cure a vampire's curse. It was a horror movie, but Pam made sure her character wasn't weak or afraid. She refused to do nude scenes and demanded that the voodoo aspects of the film be treated with respect, not used as stereotypes. Even though the vampire still had most of the power, Pam's character stood her ground. She made sure audiences saw a woman with strength, intelligence, and purpose. That same year, Pam became a legend. She starred in Coffy, playing a nurse who becomes a vigilante after her sister is destroyed by drugs. The movie was made for $125,000 but earned $2 million, an enormous hit at the time. Pam didn't just act in the movie, she helped shape it. One of the film's most iconic moments, where her character hides razor blades in her afro and uses them during a fight, was Pam's idea. It was shocking, fierce, and unforgettable. That scene became a symbol of who Pam Grier was, bold, fearless, and unstoppable. She wasn't just playing a hero, she truly was one. In 1974, Pam reached the peak of her fame with Foxy Brown. Audiences weren't ready for the power she brought to the screen. Foxy wasn't a damsel in distress, she was justice in motion. In one scene, after her boyfriend is murdered, Foxy gets revenge in one of the most shocking ways ever filmed. She captures the man responsible, has him castrated, and delivers what's left of him to his girlfriend in a glass jar. Pam choreographed the entire sequence herself, wanting every moment to feel real and powerful. It worked. Foxy Brown made around $4 million and became one of the defining films of the 1970s. More importantly, it changed how women were seen in action films. Pam wasn't the victim anymore, she was the one in control, the one people feared. That same year, she starred in The Arena, playing a female gladiator in ancient Rome. The movie was rough, with real sword fights, chariot chases, and dangerous stunts. Pam trained with real weapons, took hits, got bruised, and kept going. During one chase, she was actually injured but refused to stop filming. The movie was made on a small $75,000 budget and marked her second collaboration with producer Margaret Markoff. For Pam, The Arena was more than a movie, it was proof she could handle anything, even the harshest conditions. In 1975, she took on a new kind of role in Sheba, Baby, where she played a private detective taking on the mob. She used her real-life karate skills in the fight scenes. The movie, however, didn't perform well at the box office. Audiences and critics felt it lacked the grit and intensity of her earlier films. Some even called it Pam Grier light. It was cleaner, safer, and didn't have the raw energy people expected from her. But Pam didn't stop. Later that same year, she starred in Friday Foster. This time, she played a photographer who becomes involved in an assassination plot. Pam did her own driving during the film's wild car chase sequences. The story wasn't just another action flick, it carried a message. It addressed issues like racial unity and the targeting of black leaders. It showed that Pam could handle more than action, she could deliver depth and meaning too. It was her last movie with American International Pictures and marked the end of one chapter in her career. Also in 1975, she appeared in Bucktown, where she played Artha, a woman standing up to corrupt police officers in a small town. During filming, Pam improvised a powerful line about women's rights that wasn't in the script. It hit audiences so hard during test screenings that producers decided to keep it in the final cut. That unscripted moment showed just how much power she carried, her voice mattered, both on and off screen. Bucktown turned out to be one of her last big hits before the blaxploitation film era began to fade. By the 1980s, Pam wanted to show Hollywood she could do more than action. In 1981, she starred alongside Paul Newman in For Apache, The Bronx. She played Charlotte, a drug-addicted prostitute who kills police officers. The role was dark and disturbing, and critics described her performance as chilling. It proved that Pam could take on serious, dramatic parts, but unfortunately, it also led to her being typecast as broken or dangerous women instead of heroes. In 1983, she took an unexpected turn and joined a Disney film, Something Wicked This Way Comes, playing the Dust Witch, a mysterious and magical figure. It was far from the violent role she had become known for, but it showed her range as an actress. Pam Grier's journey through the 1970s and early 1980s was more than just a film career, it was a revolution. She fought against racism, sexism, and exploitation while paving the way for future generations of strong women in Hollywood. She didn't just change the movies, she changed the rules. Every punch she threw, every line she delivered, every boundary she broke became part of a legacy that still inspires people today. Disney got scared when test audiences didn't respond well to the movie. They spent about $4 million redoing it, and most of Pam's scenes were either shortened or completely removed. The film ended up being delayed by 5 months. The studio claimed audiences weren't ready for a black woman in a fantasy role, but the real problem was Hollywood's fear of letting women like Pam exist in magical stories. It broke her heart. From 1985 to 1989, Pam found a new chapter in television. She joined Miami Vice as Valerie Gordon, a New York detective. Thanks to her military upbringing and family discipline, she brought a real sense of power and depth to the character. Valerie wasn't just tough, she was layered, emotional, and human. Some of her best episodes dealt with her missing sister and corrupt diplomats, and she managed to show both strength and vulnerability in a way that made audiences care deeply about her. That show helped her stay visible and relevant during a time when good roles for women like her were rare. During this same period, Pam started teaching and directing theater at UCLA. She worked closely with director Roman Polanski, learning every detail about storytelling, lighting, and stage control. She even directed an all-black version of Frankie and Johnny to prove that black actors could fit into any story, not just ones written for specific races. Critics gave mixed reviews, but Pam didn't mind. For her, it was about learning and gaining independence as an artist. She wanted to control her own image instead of letting the industry define it. Her personal life, however, was full of heartbreak. In the early 1970s, Pam dated Kareem Abdul-Jabbar when he was still known as Lul Sindoor. Their relationship ended because he wanted her to convert to Islam, wear a hijab, and give up her independence. Pam refused, saying she couldn't sacrifice who she was for anyone, even someone she loved. They broke up in 1973. Later that same year, she met comedian Fresh Prince. He was young, famous, and full of energy, but also deeply troubled. They had a passionate but unstable relationship. In 1977, Freddie called her one night sounding desperate and lost. Pam tried to calm him down, but before she could help, he hung up. A few hours later, he took his own life. Pam was devastated. For years, she carried the weight of guilt, wondering if there was something she could have said or done to stop him. Not long after that, she met comedian Richard Pryor. They started dating in 1975, and Pam described him as magnetic and brilliant but dangerously unpredictable. His drug addiction was severe, and it affected every part of his life. One day, during a routine doctor's appointment, Pam was shocked to learn there were traces of cocaine inside her body. It had entered her system through him. Horrified, she confronted Richard, but he brushed it off. That was the moment she decided to leave. Their love story ended in 1976, but the chaos didn't stop. In 1980, while visiting him on the set of Stir Crazy, she found him freebasing cocaine. She begged him to stop, but he refused. A few months later, he accidentally set himself on fire while doing the same thing. Pam wasn't surprised, she had seen the warning signs long before. She also had a brief relationship with basketball legend Wilt Chamberlain. Years later, Wilt wrote a book in which he claimed to have slept with 20,000 women and mentioned Pam by name, even sharing intimate details about their time together. Pam was furious. She called it a violation of her privacy and an example of how women were often disrespected in the spotlight. No one seemed to care about how humiliating it was for her to be reduced to a statistic in someone else's story. By 1988, Pam was 39 years old and in the best shape of her life. She was healthy, confident, and finally in control of her career. She ran 6 miles every morning, ate clean, avoided meat, and never touched drugs or alcohol. Everything seemed to be going right. She was thinking about settling down, buying a house, and maybe even starting a family. Then came the phone call that shattered everything. What was supposed to be a routine medical checkup turned into the worst news she had ever heard. Doctors told her she had stage 4 cervical cancer. Not stage 1 or 2, but the most advanced stage. They said she might have only 16 to 18 months to live. Pam was in disbelief. The doctors handed her a thick folder full of medical reports and told her to start putting her affairs in order. To make things worse, she couldn't start treatment right away because her body needed to heal from a recent surgery. That meant she had to wait 6 weeks while the cancer continued to grow. Those 6 weeks were agonizing. Every day, she woke up wondering if it would be her last. But she refused to stop living. Even with the diagnosis hanging over her, she kept working. At the time, she was filming Above the Law with Steven Seagal, and she showed up on set every single day as if nothing was wrong. No one in the crew knew she was sick. She wore wigs to cover the effects of her treatments and smiled through the pain. Doctors warned her the odds weren't good, but Pam didn't accept that fate. She turned to natural healing, strict diet changes, and a deep belief in her body's ability to fight back. She meditated, prayed, and cut every bit of negativity out of her life. Slowly, her strength began to return. Months turned into years, and against all expectations, she survived. It took courage, discipline, and an unbreakable spirit, but Pam refused to give up. Her battle with cancer changed everything about her perspective on life. She no longer chased fame or validation from Hollywood. Instead, she focused on roles and projects that meant something to her. She became an advocate for women's health and spoke openly about her illness, hoping to encourage others to get tested and stay strong. Her survival wasn't just medical, it was emotional and spiritual. She had faced death and refused to let it define her. Through all of it, Hollywood rejection, heartbreak, and illness, Pam Grier proved she was more than a movie star. She was a fighter, a pioneer, and a survivor who refused to let the world decide her worth. Even when doors closed, she built new ones. And when people doubted her, she worked twice as hard to prove them wrong. Her story became not just about fame or beauty but about courage, the kind that comes from enduring pain, standing tall, and never letting life take away your light. Pam lost a lot of weight during her cancer treatment, but she kept fighting. She went through painful rounds of chemotherapy, yet she never stopped working or smiling. Her mother had been a nurse, so Pam used the knowledge she grew up with to manage her pain without becoming addicted to strong medications. That alone took incredible willpower, but the emotional pain was far worse. The man she loved didn't even show up for her first chemotherapy session, and then he completely disappeared for 5 years. She was left to face the hardest battle of her life entirely on her own. Later, Pam said that cancer teaches you who your true friends are, and for her, that truth was a harsh and lonely one. In 1990, while she was still fighting cancer, Pam's sister Krista passed away from breast cancer. Krista wasn't just family, she was Pam's closest friend. She had worked as a flight attendant, and Pam always believed that years of breathing in toxic airplane chemicals had caused her illness. Losing her was devastating. But tragedy didn't stop there. Krista's son, Freddie, couldn't handle the grief of losing his mother. Overwhelmed by sadness, he ended his own life not long after. Before he died, Freddie had tried to contact Pam, but his messages frightened her because he had made threats. Out of fear, she didn't meet him, and that decision haunted her for years. When she got the news that he was gone, she collapsed at a hotel, crying uncontrollably as police rushed to the scene. All of this heartbreak happened while she herself was still fighting for her life against cancer. Then, something unexpected gave her hope. One night, while resting at home in the San Fernando Valley, Pam was watching a PBS documentary called Healing in the Mind with Bill Moyers. The show featured a Chinese woman who had a large tumor on her back. After weeks of acupuncture, herbal medicine, pressure therapy, and meditation, the tumor disappeared. Pam took that as a sign. She decided to combine her Western cancer treatment with Eastern healing practices. Her doctor introduced her to a Chinese herbalist who gave her special herbs and advised her to drink hot tea with her meals to help cleanse her body. Pam also began doing yoga and stuck to a strict, disciplined routine. She believed that spending time in nature, breathing fresh air, and drinking clean water would help her heal both physically and spiritually. Slowly, her body began to respond. Her strength returned, her energy improved, and one day the doctors gave her unbelievable news: she was in remission. That was more than 35 years ago, and Pam Grier is still alive today. She became a passionate advocate for cancer awareness, urging people to get regular checkups and never lose hope. She often said that miracles can happen when you fight with every bit of your strength. But even after her body healed, Pam's heart still carried scars. Years later, she began therapy to deal with the emotional pain she had buried deep inside for decades. That was when she finally revealed the truth about her past. She had been living with trauma since childhood. At just 6 years old, Pam was sexually assaulted by a group of boys. Then, at 18, she was attacked again by someone she trusted. She never told anyone. Instead, she buried the memories, carrying the pain in silence while pretending to be strong. In therapy, all those suppressed emotions resurfaced: the fear, the anger, and the heartbreak. She realized she had been suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder for most of her life. Suddenly, everything made sense. The fierce, fearless women she played on screen weren't just movie characters, they were pieces of her soul. Acting became her way of fighting back, of surviving. Each tough, unapologetic woman she portrayed was her shield, protecting the little girl inside who had been hurt. When Pam later wrote her memoir Foxy, My Life in 3 Acts, she revealed that the bold and confident image everyone admired wasn't just acting, it was her truth. Her strength was real because it had been forged through pain, survival, and self-respect. In 1996, after years of smaller TV roles and low-budget films, Pam's career took an unexpected turn. She appeared in Tim Burton's wild sci-fi comedy Mars Attacks. As Louise Williams, a tough and loving mother who drives a bus and tries to save her kids during a Martian invasion. The film was packed with big Hollywood stars like Jack Nicholson, Glenn Close, and Pierce Brosnan. It cost around $80 million to make and was shot in multiple countries, from California to Argentina. The movie didn't do very well at the box office, it only made about $11 million, but for Pam, it was a huge personal victory. It brought her back into the spotlight after years of being overlooked. Audiences remembered her again, and her performance reminded everyone that she was still a powerhouse actress. That renewed attention opened the door for the biggest moment of her later career. In 1997, filmmaker Quentin Tarantino decided to write a movie specifically for Pam Grier. He adapted the novel Rum Punch into a film called Jackie Brown, and he completely rewrote the main character to fit her. In the book, the lead was written as a white woman, but Tarantino refused to cast anyone else. He said he had grown up watching Pam's movies and wanted to give her the kind of leading role Hollywood had once denied her. When Pam first met Tarantino to discuss the project, she thought he wanted her for a smaller part. But he told her straight out, "No, you're Jackie Brown." It was the comeback she never expected. The movie became a critical success, earning her Golden Globe and SAG Award nominations. Reviewers called her performance powerful, mature, and unforgettable. She played a woman who was smart, calm under pressure, and in full control, a survivor who outwitted everyone around her. It was a reflection of who Pam Grier truly was, both on screen and in real life. After everything she had endured, the racism, the heartbreak, the loss, the cancer, and the trauma, Pam Grier rose again. She didn't just rebuild her career, she reclaimed her story. Her journey showed that strength isn't about pretending nothing hurts. It's about surviving the pain, learning from it, and still choosing to move forward with grace and dignity. Pam Grier's life became proof that even when the world tries to break you, you can always rise again, stronger, wiser, and more fearless than before. And she truly delivered in Jackie Brown. Pam played a flight attendant who secretly smuggled money between the United States and Mexico. What made her performance powerful wasn't just the plot, it was how Quentin Tarantino honored her legacy from the 1970s, when she ruled the screen in films like Coffy and Foxy Brown. The film made $74 million on a $12 million budget, and Pam earned a Golden Globe nomination. Critics praised her performance, calling it magnetic, confident, and deeply human. Her co-star Robert Forster even received an Oscar nomination. After years of being overlooked, Pam Grier was finally back where she belonged, front and center. She kept the momentum going in 1998 when Showtime launched the series Lynx. Pam played Eleanor Winthrop, a strong and intelligent leader of a political group fighting for children's rights. The show was set in a DC bar and mixed humor with heavy social themes like racism, poverty, and justice. Pam brought her real-life activism into the role, making it feel authentic. Lynx ran until early 2000 and earned 5 award nominations. For Pam, it was more proof that she could easily shift between action, drama, and comedy without ever losing her edge. In 1999, Pam seemed to be everywhere. She appeared in the dark teen comedy Jawbreaker, playing Detective Vera Cruz, who investigates a cruel high school clique hiding a terrible secret. The movie had a campy, exaggerated tone, but Pam grounded it with her serious energy, giving the story emotional weight. That same year, she also lent her voice to an episode of the animated series Happily Ever After, Fairy Tales for Every Child, where she played a talking nightingale in a story about inner beauty. Even in voice acting, she had a way of touching hearts and making people listen. Also in 1999, Pam appeared in Holy Smoke, a drama directed by Jane Campion, who was known for the piano. Pam shared scenes with Kate Winslet and Harvey Keitel, and though the movie was quiet and artistic, her performance stood out. It was another reminder that she wasn't limited to action or exploitation films, she was a serious, respected actress. When the 2000s began, Pam showed no signs of slowing down. From 2002 to 2004, she guest-starred on Law and Order, SVU as prosecutor Claudia Williams. The role wasn't huge, but it carried power. Her performance earned her 2 NAACP Image Award nominations and proved she could still command the screen, even in smaller parts. Then came one of her most emotional roles ever. In 2004, Pam joined Showtime's groundbreaking series The L Word, playing Kit Porter, the older sister of Bette Porter. Kit was a straight woman struggling with alcoholism and heartbreak while working in the music industry. Throughout the show, she was a voice of love and wisdom for her sister's circle of friends. Over 6 seasons, Pam's performance was raw, funny, and deeply emotional. One unforgettable scene showed Kit turning down a marriage proposal because, as she said, the people she loved most couldn't legally get married. That moment became one of the show's most powerful statements. Pam played Kit until the series ended in 2009, and her performance left a lasting impact on fans. When the L Word reboot came years later, Pam wasn't part of it. She was already busy filming another project. In 2019, she starred in the comedy series Bless This Mess, playing Constance Terry, the local sheriff and store owner in a small Nebraska town. Pam brought her trademark warmth, humor, and authority to the role, reminding everyone that her screen presence was still as strong as ever. That same year, she appeared in Poms, a comedy about a group of women in a retirement community who start a cheerleading squad. Pam played Olive, a lively 70-year-old who actually performed cheer routines on screen. Critics said the story was predictable, but Pam's energy was infectious. She proved that age couldn't dim her talent or her spirit. Back in 2010, Pam released her memoir Foxy, My Life in 3 Acts, which sold over 100,000 copies and shocked readers with its honesty. In it, she opened up about the darkest parts of her life, her childhood trauma, being gang-raped at 6 years old, and sexually assaulted again at 18. She also shared the painful details of her relationship with comedian Richard Pryor, describing how his addiction and drug use affected her physically and emotionally. Her courage to speak openly about these experiences inspired countless readers. The book wasn't just a memoir, it was a story of survival, healing, and resilience. Because of that memoir, plans began for a biopic titled Pam. Jay Farrow was chosen to play Richard Pryor after Pam heard his impression of him and said, "That's Richard." The script, written by Benny Richburg, was described as emotional and brutally honest. Even though studios were still reviewing it, the project was already making headlines. Despite her legendary status, Pam never received an Oscar nomination, not even for Jackie Brown, which earned her 16 nominations from other awards. In 2016, IndieWire listed her among the greatest actors never to be recognized by the Academy. That unfairness stung, especially when people compared her comeback to John Travolta's in Pulp Fiction. Both actors revived their careers through Tarantino films, yet only Travolta received Oscar attention. Still, Pam didn't dwell on it. She knew her influence went beyond awards. Actress Halle Berry once said her career wouldn't have been possible without Pam Grier. That statement alone said everything. As her fame continued, so did the rumors. Some gossip sites claimed she had been banned from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air after a guest appearance in 1994. The truth? Completely false. She had played Janice Robertson, did her scenes professionally, and left. There was no drama at all. But fake stories kept spreading online, turning into clickbait videos with titles like Pam Grier banned. Pam never let it bother her. She had faced far worse in her life than internet gossip. In 2018, during the height of the #MeToo movement, Pam shared a story that revealed her strength once again. She said she had rejected Harvey Weinstein back in the 1970s, long before his crimes became public. Years later, when she was set to star in an Amazon series alongside Robert De Niro and Julianne Moore, the project collapsed because of Weinstein's scandal. Instead of staying quiet, Pam spoke out. She gave TED Talks about surviving both sexual assault and cancer. She used her pain as power, turning it into lessons for others about resilience, healing, and courage. Even now, Pam Grier hasn't faded from the spotlight. In May 2024, at 76 years old, she appeared on The Jennifer Hudson Show and shared a funny story from the set of her 2001 horror film Bones with Snoop Dogg. Laughing, she said, "Let me tell you, he can smooch." The audience roared. Snoop later admitted that meeting Pam for the first time made him faint in the bathroom. That's the kind of impact Pam Grier still has, charming, iconic, and unforgettable. Their friendship has lasted for over 2 decades, and through it all, she continues to prove that she's not just a Hollywood legend, she's a survivor, a trailblazer, and one of the most powerful women ever to grace the screen.